Hello, I'm Josh, 74 years old, and I want to share something very personal with you. Lately, I've been waking up in the middle of the night, often right around a.m. Sometimes the house is so quiet, it feels almost empty, and my mind begins to wander to worries or memories I thought I had left behind. At times, I wonder if God has forgotten me in those silent hours. But through my journey, I've discovered that these moments might be times when God is softly whispering to my heart, inviting me to listen deeply. In this video, I want to walk with you through 5 reflections grounded in the Bible and the wisdom of faith that have brought me comfort and hope in those restless nights. If you find this message meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to join me on this path of faith and peace. When we think of God speaking, we often imagine a loud voice or a grand miracle. But the Bible reveals that sometimes God's voice comes quietly, especially in moments of silence and solitude. One of the most beautiful examples is found in 1 Samuel 3, where a young boy named Samuel hears God calling his name in the night. Samuel was just a boy living with the priest Eli, and he was sleeping in the temple when he heard someone call him. At first, he thought it was Eli, but after the voice called again, Eli helped him understand it was the Lord. When Samuel finally recognized God's voice, he responded humbly, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." 1 Samuel 3:10. This story reminds us that God often speaks when the world is still, inviting us to open our hearts and listen carefully. I think of Carol, a dear friend of mine, 89 years old, who told me about her own nights filled with waking and wondering. Like Samuel, Carol learned that the quiet moments were not empty or wasted. Instead, they became sacred times when she could tune her spirit to God's gentle whisper. She would softly pray, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening," and in that stillness, she found comfort and clarity. It can be difficult to know if the restless thoughts and feelings we have at night are just our worries or something more, a spiritual whisper inviting us into a deeper relationship with God. Science tells us that waking during the night is common among older adults. Our sleep cycles change, and the mind often becomes more active. But these biological realities do not exclude the spiritual dimension. Instead, they create space, a pause in the day's busyness where God can meet us. The ancient practice of night prayer, called vigils, has long been a way believers turn to God in the darkest hours. It's a time to hold our hearts open, to seek God's presence and peace. Just like Samuel's story teaches us, the first step is readiness, a heart willing to listen even when we feel uncertain or afraid. When Carol embraced this perspective, her nights changed. Instead of fighting the wakefulness or fearing the silence, she began to welcome it as a gift. She would quietly reflect on Scripture, sometimes whispering psalms that spoke to her soul. One verse she loved was Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." It became a gentle anchor amid restless thoughts, reminding her that God's presence was near, even in the silence. This openness to God's whisper does not mean we will always hear words or feel dramatic signs. Often, God's voice is subtle, a peace that settles the heart, a thought that calms fear, or a renewed sense of hope. Sometimes it is the courage to keep trusting when answers do not come. I want you to know that your night waking is not a failure or a burden to bear alone. Like Carol, you can find sacred meaning in these moments. You can learn to listen with your heart, opening space for God's whispers of love and encouragement. As we continue, I invite you to reflect on your own nights. When you wake in the silence, what thoughts or feelings rise? Could there be a divine whisper beneath the noise? I look forward to sharing more reflections with you that can bring peace and spiritual comfort. When the quiet stretches on through the night, and the mind is restless with questions and worries, it is natural to wonder why God seems silent. One of the most profound stories in the Bible about wrestling with silence is that of Job, a man who endured great suffering and longed for answers. After losing his beloved wife, sleep became elusive. The silence of the night amplified his loneliness and grief. Like Job, John wrestled with God, asking why the pain was so sharp and why answers seemed absent. The quiet becomes a chapel where we speak honestly with God and listen, even in silence. Sometimes, God's answer is not a voice, but a deepening peace that assures us we are held. Verses like Isaiah 41:10, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God," offer reassurance when fear threatens to overwhelm. But slowly, through prayer and reflection, one helpful practice is to keep a small journal beside your bed. When you wake with worries or questions, write them down as a prayer. What fears or questions do you bring to Him? How might embracing the quiet open your heart to His whispers? This act of writing brings your heart before God and can lighten the weight of restless thoughts. Your presence here means so much. We will explore how night waking can become a sacred time, an invitation to pray and listen deeply, and how simple spiritual practices can guide us toward God's comforting presence in the silent hours. John found peace not by receiving answers, but by trusting God's presence in the silence. Job's nights were filled with tears and cries to God. Night waking is often part of the natural changes we experience as we age. The silence felt heavy, but I chose to recite Psalm 23 softly. "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." That night, the fear began to lift, replaced by a calm that I can only describe as God's peace. Rather than resisting or feeling defeated, we can accept it as an opportunity for spiritual growth. God's whisper may be subtle, and His timing perfect, even if we do not fully understand it. He poured out His heart honestly, questioning and pleading, yet God did not respond immediately. Instead, Job faced a long season of silence, a silence that tested his faith and patience. Yet, despite his anguish, Job declared, especially in older adults, night waking may reflect the body and mind processing loss or anxiety, but these biological responses do not negate the spiritual reality. In fact, they open a door for deeper intimacy with God, a chance to bring our pain honestly before Him, as Job did. "Though He slay me, yet I will hope in Him." Many psalmists cry out in the darkness, seeking God's help and comfort. Psalm 34-18 reminds us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." This verse tells us that God is near even when we feel shattered and alone in the night. This remarkable trust in the midst of silence is a beacon for all of us who struggle during lonely nights. I think of John, 86 years old, who once told me about his own dark nights of the soul. Science acknowledges that grief and stress can disrupt sleep. The Psalms provide beautiful prayers for those restless nights. Mary, 79 years old, shared with me how she found solace in these words. When she would wake up overwhelmed by worries about her children and the future, she turned to the Psalms. Repeating verses like Psalm 121-3, "He will not let your foot slip, He who watches over you will not slumber," became a nightly practice that calmed her fears and reminded her of God's faithful care. Turning restlessness into prayer transforms the night from a time of despair to a sacred encounter. There are practical ways to nurture this trust in God during the night. Another simple but powerful step is to memorize comforting scriptures or prayers that you can quietly repeat in the night. It is also important to be patient with ourselves during this process. I remember a night when I was overwhelmed by uncertainty about my health. As we journey together through these reflections, I invite you to consider how trusting God in the silence can change your nights. If these thoughts encourage you, please like this video and subscribe to Grace Wisdom Ears so we can continue exploring faith, hope, and peace together. As we come to the final reflection, I want to share how waking at night can become more than just a struggle or restlessness. It can become a sacred time, a quiet chapel in the stillness where our souls meet God's presence. Psalm 63 says, "My soul thirsts for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Those words capture the longing many of us feel in the night. A thirst for God's presence when the world feels empty. When we bring that longing honestly before God, the night becomes a place of spiritual refreshment. To open your heart to God's gentle presence, please comment below with a word that means hope to you. Maybe faith, peace, or strength. Your sharing could bring comfort to someone else walking the same path. Also, please subscribe to Grace Wisdom Ears and share this video with someone who needs to hear this reminder of God as nearness in the silent night. Even when you do not hear words, His peace can fill you, His love can hold you, His whisper can guide you. This transformation begins when we choose to embrace the night with openness and faith, rather than resistance and fear. Jake, 81 years old, once told me about his nightly routine. Instead of fighting the wakefulness, imagine a gentle breeze that carries the scent of new beginnings and eternal hope. May the silent hours bring you closer to God's loving presence and renew your faith with each gentle breath. May God's whisper in the silent night fill your heart with hope, comfort, and everlasting peace. The night is not just a time of waking and waiting, but a time of spiritual awakening, a sacred gift for those who listen. Picture the quiet glow of God's love surrounding you like a comforting embrace, a light that never fades. This is the peace that God offers when we open our hearts to His whisper in the silence. But by changing how we relate to it, we change the experience. Instead of seeing it as a problem, we can see it as an invitation to slow down, to be still, and to listen. He would sit quietly by his window and look up at the stars. But it can also soften them when we turn toward God. The light of His love shines brightest in our darkest hours. Just as dawn follows the longest night, God's hope follows our deepest struggles. He found that the vastness of the night sky helped him feel connected to God and the eternal. In that silence, Jake would pray softly. This might include reading a short passage from the Bible, such as Psalm 23 or Isaiah 40, followed by a prayer of gratitude or trust. You might light a candle or play soft instrumental music to create a peaceful atmosphere. These small acts prepare the heart to receive God's whisper and rest deeply, letting his heart speak honestly and simply to God. He discovered that these moments of solitude were times of deep renewal, where worries faded and hope was restored. The Bible invites us to such moments. One practical way to nurture this sacredness is to create gentle rituals for the night. It is also important to be patient and compassionate with ourselves. Night waking may never fully disappear. Many of us carry wounds from loss, loneliness, or fear of the future. The night can amplify those feelings. I want to encourage you today, especially if you feel burdened by night waking. If this message has touched your heart, as we close, imagine the first light of dawn, soft and warm, gently brushing away the shadows of night. May you rest in that peace tonight and always. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this message has brought you comfort or hope, please share a word that speaks to your heart in the comments below. Maybe faith, peace, or hope. Feel the tender breeze that carries whispers of peace and renewal, wrapping around you like a gentle embrace. In the quiet of the night and the promise of the morning, may God's love fill you with calm, hope, and the quiet assurance that you are never alone. Your story may be a light to someone else who needs encouragement tonight. Don't forget to subscribe to Grace Wisdom Ears and share this video with a loved one who might find strength in God's whispers during the silent hours. Now, imagine the first soft glow of dawn, gently breaking through the darkness. like God's everlasting light reaching into your soul.